Are we live already?
Yes.
No.
You can. Yes, we are. You can have another drink of your beer, though. Hey, guys. We're going to give everybody a few minutes. We're not quite at 2 o'clock yet. But thank you so much for coming. This is the stupidest thing for sure we've ever done. But hopefully you guys get something out of it. And we did our best to pack as much information in a somewhat short amount of time as possible.
Yeah, live.
Yes, we're live.
All right.
Yeah.
That's nice. We're going to start in a couple of minutes, so maybe 3 minutes or so we get the people in.
Yeah. Is there anything you want to tell everybody?
Not right now.
Coming out of the closet anytime soon? What? I'm not allowed to drink beer? So I think actually we can start some of the introductions pretty soon. So I'm Sarah, and you don't know me because I'm a nobody, but our co-presenter here, Marco, has been training dogs for quite a bit of time. How old were you? Oh, I know what we can do. I have photos of you.
Yeah, but you are not allowed to show them, though.
No, they're already uploaded.
They are uploaded?
Yes.
This is some kind of prank?
So he started pretty early, and I got a couple of those photos. How old were you when you started?
No, I was teenager. I was old enough to understand how embarrassing it was to be and train the dogs in front of the people.
So you were training in front of people?
Yes. I started in a local club in Pori. Pori, yeah, my home city. That's where I started, and we go from there. So there was really good instructors at first who motivated the young people, and it was easy that way to start.
Yeah.
And in that time, the dog sport was boosting quite a bit. So
in Finland.
Yeah, in Finland.
Some
yes.
people don't know that he's not. English is not his first language.
Yeah, you cannot hear from my
perfect English, but
yeah, you cannot hear. So the good thing is that when I'm speaking this Finglish now, that you cannot ask any questions anyways if you don't understand. Maybe half of my speaking you don't understand anyways, but
it's good for anybody who's with him. So hey everyone! Oh, I just looked at all your comments. Hi. Hello from Brazil. Oh, I want to give a shout out to Polly from La Jolla, who sent me a message that she took the whole day off work for this event.
That puts pressure on us.
You're the bomb, Polly. You're awesome. So, so Finland, and then I'm just going to show you some pictures of Marco in his early days.
This is not good planning. I didn't know about those pictures.
Oh.
Hopefully you haven't planned that with my mother or something like that.
Well, actually, it doesn't look like. Oh, I can't even see them anyways. I don't know. They're not on here. I guess I had to download them ahead of time, and I didn't. I might do that while he's talking later, just to show you, because it's pretty cute. He's got some on the website too. So
you can see the transformation, what happens for the man in almost 30 years.
Yes, exactly.
How you can beautiful baby to the ugly adult man.
Okay, so he started very, very, very young. It's kind of unfair how early he started. Some pictures are he's like 13 or 14 with the helper sleeve on and training.
A little older though. Maybe I look like 13.
You look really young, yeah. So what was your first breed?
My first breed was rough collie, so Lassie. From the movies.
Lassie was your first breed.
Yeah.
And what did you do with Lassie?
I did a little bit everything. I started with like FCI obedience. Europeans knows that. It's a little bit same like AKC and CKC obedience. That's how I started. And then I did all kind of sports what we had in Finland, what includes the same obedience than Schutzhund IPO. Yeah. So there was searching and tracking in the forest and report dogs. That's what I did with the collies at first.
Yeah. What age were you when you became a training director at your club?
I think I was around like 15 years old, something like that. Again, old enough to understand.
You were
how
14 or 15 when you became a training director at a club.
Something like that.
That's
yes.
That's just
I don't know. That was some kind of mistake what they did.
Yeah, they were all high that day.
I don't know.
So then you evolved. You were in the military for quite a while, training dogs there.
Yes. Yeah, I was training military dogs a couple of years before I started to work in the army. Or I started to work in the army after my mandatory service, and I was working with the dogs, and after that I was working with the artillery, mainly in military. But
yeah,
I had a little short period of the time in my life where I was working with the dogs in the army.
Okay. Yes, I'm sure. And then you kind of did some big things. I think you're the only individual, correct me if I'm wrong, people, but I think are you the only person to have podiumed at the All-Breed FCI Championships, the WSV German Shepherd Championships, and the FMBB Malinois Championships?
I don't know. I never checked.
Okay. No. Well, anybody can correct me. I haven't seen any.
Never win anything, so.
Stupid. So those are huge competitions. I love AKC. I love competitive obedience. But one of the really cool things about Schutzen or IPO or IGP or whatever you want to call it, one of the really cool things is it is a world sport. It's the only protection sport that I know of that everybody who has access in their country can come together, share training ideas. It makes the training evolve, and it makes for gnarly competition. So when you do top results at the world level, it's just a massive accomplishment. And you for sure not only have podiumed at those 3 world events, but you've coached a countless amount of people to the top 20. Some people in countries, hi Gilberto, if you're watching, some people in countries that don't have the support. Mexico, Gilberto doesn't have a club. He doesn't have a lot of resources, and yet he was 15th?
Yes. Now I don't want to say it because I don't remember exactly.
I think he was 15th at WSV. So it's a huge accomplishment, and he works with Marco a few times a year. So anyways, big, huge superstar status within the dog training community right here. I'm very honored to learn from him all the time.
I would disagree with that superstar status a lot, but I would like to say that in this sport, of course, the nicest thing is that you can learn the people from different countries, and this connection between all the people internationally, it makes also the sport better because the people can communicate and share the ideas, and the ideas what somebody else gets on the other side of the world can be totally different what we get here, and seeing those people and combining those ideas, it's very nice.
Yes. Somebody sees the screen's black. Hopefully that's just one person. Oh, hi from Finland. Nina. Very clear Finnish accent. Okay. So the what we're going over today, we are going to start with his methodology with regards to healing. We're going to kind of go over the eye contact argument. Some people caution against it and others are all for it, and you're going to find out what his theory is on that. Then we're going to show you, we have some pre-recorded examples of 3 tools that we think will help your healing pretty much right away. You can go out and start doing them almost immediately. And then we'll give you a couple snippets of our healing course, which we're releasing today as well. If you have time, it'll just be a couple minutes. And then we're going to go over the biggest mistake he sees when people are initially teaching the healing. And we see it a lot. It happens constantly. And you never want to be that jerk that's like, you might want to tweak a little something here and there. But once the dog has 6 months of foundation with this mistake, it's pretty difficult to fix. So hopefully we can prevent some of you guys from doing that. And then the final thing that we're going to go over is a live Q&A. I will be sitting reading questions, and this man will be answering them for you. So
that sounds good.
I know. I created the timeline myself. So the healing philosophy, eye contact, what are the main benefits that you see with teaching healing, with the focal point being your eyes?
The one thing what I want to say before I go to your question is about the healing generally, how important it is.
Okay.
Generally in obedience.
Yes.
Yeah, like
it's not just the healing.
Exactly. Like it actually it actually affects all the emotion what you have in the obedience. Emotion, I mean that what's the dog's activity level, what's the drive, how the dog is working through the obedience. The healing is the big factor there, because all the basic positions and basically even finishes, they are for me part of the healing. So now when you do your exercises, and if you have very active, powerful free healing, it also affects not only your healing exercise, but also for your out of motion exercises, your dumbbells.
Yes. And you're talking specifically in IPO.
IPO, and also in the other sports, you know, like the same way, like how I see it, kind of glues all the exercises together. So now even when you are preparing to the next exercise, whatever is your sport, if you have an active healing where the dog kind of keeps the good emotion, keeps the good connection with the handler, that helps you with every exercise in the obedience.
It's not frequent that we see somebody come into an obedience ring with the dog that's a bit flat or inactive in the healing, go on to have amazing exercises, because it's just a really good read. And it's also the judge's first impression. It doesn't matter if your healing is up first. Let's say AKC and utility, you might have a different exercise up first, but that's initially how you walk into the ring. And if your dog's not in a powerful 100% ready to go emotion, then it's likely you're going to have some problems.
Yes, and it affects through the obedience with everything, but also, like, if you think that you have a little bit dog who is distracted about the environment and is looking around easily. Now, if your dog doesn't have that good active healing, they more easily start to react to the things on what happens on the side. So they are more distracted easily in all the exercises.
And one thing I hear from competitive obedience people is, oh, well, the judges don't care so much like they do in Schutzen about the power, about the energy. And you are correct. It's not pointed. However, if you do have a dog who gets, like you said, more distracted easily, or really any dog, when you have that sort of commitment to the healing, you're really a lot less likely to get dinged for bumping you on an about turn or a left turn, because they're just so in tune with what's going on.
Yes, not only that, we can of course find a million different reasons why healing is so important, but also how, when you go to the judge and you give it that first impression to the judge when you walk to the field, and in our sport when you go to shake the hand with the judge, when you have a dog who is connected with you and you don't have to worry about your dog too much, the dog is working for you already in that situation, it gives the really good impression for the judge as well. Yeah,
we went to a seminar the other day with the French guy, and he was talking about that. You know, he wants to see a dog.
Vincent.
Yes, good Vincent. See a dog in basic position that's waiting and anticipating the start and ready to go. And that's his first impression. So the biggest pro for using eye contact with healing?
The eye contact, that was the original question. And with the there is many, the people are teaching different target points, as we know in the healing. Some people want that the dog is looking at the armpit. Some people want maybe some other target points. I prefer typically the eye contact to the face. And the reason for that is that's the way to make the dog always connected with the handler. So there is that kind of communication.
It's real connection.
Exactly. And
it's not waiting for a ball. It's real connection.
Exactly. And it's easier to keep that connection going on. So the dog actually makes the activity towards the handler in healing all the time.
Because they're getting something back.
Exactly. And they have learned that already. Like they have learned already in the young dog to have that connection to your face. You have been keeping rewarding that. And that's something what you have in the trial. So you walk to the trial, and if you have that connection that the dog is looking at your face and doing the activity towards you and looking at you, that really can also help you, you know? If it's all based on that there maybe is toy somewhere. In some cases, it can make it more difficult to keep that emotion and the drive on in the trial.
Yeah, so you always have your face on you. You always have you. So why not use yourself as a reward? The downside, or maybe the argument that some people might have, or the reservation some people might have with regards to using eye contact, is that the dog might want to come to the front to look at your face. However, the dog doesn't have to learn to look at your face from that position can you explain how the dog can learn to wait for the reward and doesn't have to be looking at your face all the time? They don't have to see this clear picture all the time.
Yeah. The idea is like that the dog is seeking for the eye contact. So when I look down, I see that my dog is looking at me on my face.
There.
But of course in the trial I'm looking forward, so the dog cannot see my face all the time. But
they can see the side of your beautiful face.
Yeah, or they can see my beard at least. Depends how big belly I have. But they are seeking for the eye contact on my and when I look down, I have that connection. Okay. And when I look down and I praise my dog, I have a connection with my dog.
Okay. So they can learn to look for that reward almost in the same way, like let's say you're using a ball in the armpit method, which can be effective, but the dog doesn't have to see the ball all the time. Ideally, the ball is hidden. That doesn't mean that they are going to go look somewhere else for the ball. They're staring where they've been taught to stare for that ball. So different options for healing. He prefers the eye contact, and I tend to agree with that. And then, when you do have that good emotion of the dog really working for you, you've got a better connection, and that leads to higher reliability when you go into the trial.
Yeah, that's what I believe. Of course, like the dog training is difficult, and also keeping the connection long time in the trials, it's challenging, it's difficult.
Okay.
It's not easy for any handler ever. It doesn't matter what's the target. It's always a lot of work to make the dog to be connected with the handler long period of the time.
Right. So no matter what method you use, there is a potential fallback. There are potential technical issues that you might struggle with in any system that you have.
Yes, that's a good point. So whatever training system you have, especially if you have a dog who has a lot of drive and lots of activity, they try to always a little more. They try more and more and more. Now, whatever is the target, maybe your dog start to jump or your dog start to push. So some people say that, okay, when the dog has the eye contact to your face, they easily start to forge or comes crooked. For sure. And that's something what can happen. So you have to have tools in your training that you can affect on your dog's technical position. So you have to have ways how you reward your dog, for example, that makes the position more clear for the dog.
Okay.
And like every training, so even if you have a toy in the armpit, maybe in some dogs it makes the dog push on you. So So we are always dealing with little technical issues. Doesn't matter what is the training system, especially when we are trying to make our dogs very active and powerful in the healing. That always brings that problem into the training that the dog easily start to show more.
Yeah.
Especially if you do those little technical mistakes when you are training your young dog.
Which we're going to talk about later. So you don't do them.
Yes. Everybody does them in some point, little bit, of course. And then when the dog does those little, or the handler makes those little technical mistakes in the training, maybe the dog is touching a little bit on the body or something like that. Then when the dog goes higher in drive, then what happens? Then the dog starts to push, or the dog starts to forge even more, or does something what the dog does something only a little bit in the low drive, in the high drive, in the high activity, then the dog does it more and more.
Okay. So I'm just going to put a little poll here because I kind of want to know what everybody is doing in the sport. So I am going to publish it, and we'll see what everybody's doing. So the next thing that we are going to go over, we're going to show you the examples. We've pre-recorded some examples of what we feel like are the biggest tools, and then we're going to have a little bit of a discussion about them afterwards. So bear with me and we will get started.
These guys are so much faster with computer than me. They are answering like in 1 second.
I know you really want to start getting on here and typing everything. I'm a Martin, I'm a police officer and I just pulled over to attend a seminar. Martin, you are our hero. Not because you're a cop, because you're listening to us. I'm kidding. You are in both regards. Okay, so let's get our video on here.
And nice to see. I recognize some people from all over the world. Some people who have been training in the Raza. It's for Europeans. It's night time now, so some of you has to keep yourself awake a little bit longer. And there, for some people in this side of the world, it's a morning.
That's why I can drink a little bit of beer, because it could be, you know, as the song says, 5 o'clock somewhere. All right.
All right, here we go with that first, with this active pop, how we call it. When we are demanding from our dog the active healing, that's a one phase in your training. What is very important when you are training your dog, that your dog really, not only that the dog is looking at you and being in the right position, but in every situation the dog is looking at you. In every situation the dog is in the right position and is not distracted. That's very important for your healing, that the dog is really, really committed to do that. So you need some kind of tool to prove that. So in every situation you should be able to kind of demand that behavior from your dog. Of course, before you can start to do anything like this, all the technical foundation, all the drive building, all the emotion, the main things in the emotional training for your healing has to be done. So here Heikki and Inio are showing to us the little part of training how we can use leash when the dog is distracted. So at first you can see here, just from the basic position, the dog is supposed to look at the handler, but he's not looking. Heikki gave a little pop from the leash and turned right at the same moment. The dog was looking away. The basic position, Heikki turned right, pop from the leash, and as you saw, verbally praised the dog right away, and then eventually rewarded the dog with the ball. Why we are doing that? Of course, when we go to the competitions and the trials, it's important that the dog is all the time connected with the handler and doesn't get distracted. So you have to have some kind of tool to kind of demand that behavior from your dog. And the basic position is the one situation already that for many dogs, they start to look around, they start to look what's happening around the field. That's the situation where you need to be connected with your dog. And the same thing in the movement. Heikki turns around. The dog looks away. Looks at the distraction. And what does Heikki? Heikki turns to the right, pops from the leash, praise and reward. In slow motion, same situation. The dog looks away, pop. Now Inio looks back at Heikki. Heikki praises with his feminine noise and rewards the dog. One very important thing in this situation is that basically always when you do this kind of exercise for the young dog, you need to reward the dog after that. So when you pop from the leash, there comes the instant praising after the pop, and then you reward with the ball. And of course your dog has to be active generally in the healing to do something like that. You cannot start to pop the dog who generally is not active. It's more like that 95% of the time the dog is active in the healing, and now there is just something interesting, and in that situation you use that pop. But the dog knows exactly the right behavior. So basically with the pop, you are not trying to teach the dog something new. You are only getting the dog back to that behavior what the dog is supposed to show in the healing. Handler must see when the dog does this mistake. So it's your role. If there is somebody else telling you, okay, hey, now your dog looks away, and then it might be late. So now, as we saw in this, Inio was just slightly looking away in the heeling, and in that situation, Heikki turned right and popped from the leash. And then right after that, rewarded the dog. So the timing is important. The dog shows reaction to distractions, and that's the moment when the handler uses the leash, the dog engages back to the heeling, and that's when the handler rewards. So the dog also learns that this pop means that the reward is coming from the handler. So the handler is praising after the pop and then rewarding. So not only that the dog doesn't look away, but the dog also learns to make more activity, more drive from this pop. Praising, and reward. Good work, Heikki. Oh, and what happened there? Inio wasn't looking away. There was this ugly man on the right corner, was distracting with the ball, and Inio didn't look away. So what we do then? Of course, we praise the dog and reward. As we see, smiling Heikki was very surprised that actually his training was effective. So when you see that the dogs are to be successful in those situations, remember to reward your dog all the time from the right behavior. And eventually, you don't have to pop from the leash anymore. Then the dog shows the successful behavior all the time. That's the idea. When we are talking about the release styles, how we reward the dog, one of my favorites, as many of you know, is the barking. So the barking reward. It's not only the way to activate the dog. I see it as a reward, especially when you have a dog who enjoys to bark. When you use the barking in your healing, of course you need to teach that at first outside of the healing contexts at first, so the dog really learns to show the good barking to you. Just the dog is, for example, on the leash on the post and learns to be active. The dog is frustrated and shows the barking and you reward. So the dog has to learn the command what, for example, or bark, and show the barking from that. That's what the dog has to learn at first. And once the dog has learned that, then you can start to use it as a tool in your healing. Not only that we have just the one way to reward the dog in the healing, we have different ways to activate and stimulate the dog in the healing, and barking is one of those. So like you saw in this video what I did, my dog was healing pretty okay. So I rewarded the dog with the barking, and after the barking, the dog showed even a little bit more activity, and then I gave the ball to the dog. Other way to do the same thing. I rewarded the dog, so I said chip. The dog spinned around. Came the way how the dog comes in my case when I reward him. But then I didn't give the reward, I withhold the reward and I made the dog to bark. So I kind of frustrated the dog a little bit. Oh, you didn't get it yet? And then we continue healing. And then when the dog showed more activity, then I rewarded from the healing. If you're gonna continue your healing every time after the barking, of course the dog is not so excited to bark anymore. So that's why it's important that often you also reward from the good barking, like we saw in this last example. So when the dog was healing good, I made the dog to bark, and then I rewarded from the good bark. So the dog learns to be excited in the barking and give everything in the barking. So that reflects in my healing. If I would do barking, healing, eventually maybe the dog doesn't bark anymore because the dog is, oh, we go back to the healing anyhow. So you have to also vary it. The barking is just a one piece of our healing training. Not only the barking, many other ways to do that as well. And we are talking in our healing course about those ways more, of course. So there is a spin reward, there is a using the leash, how you can activate the dog, and many various tools what you need to handle that you can build your excellent healing to the trial. So the barking is just a one little kind of portion of all the healing training. And here we can see the Sarah and the puppy. Little pop from the leash, barking, and reward from the barking. So Sarah combined the little pop from the leash to the barking in this situation. And that already teaches the dog the reaction on this little pop. So the dog learns to be more active from the pop in the barking, and learns to make more activity from that pop. So combining that little element in your barking can help you with that in future when you use that little pop on your healing to activate the dog. And now you just have to remember that the barking is not something what you can put right away in your healing. The healing itself has to be already technically pretty ready. So the dog has to understand the right position, and the dog has to be rewarded numerous times from the right behavior in the healing. After that, you can use the tool like a barking in the healing. If you take the barking too early in your healing training, it might be that your dog is just barking in the healing and doesn't show the healing anymore. So that's why it's important that the dog has pretty clear picture about the healing before you start to use the barking as a reward. Very nice work, Esko. Good. There you could see how the dog, that's the one way to build the dog's activity in the healing with the barking. And that's why we had many examples, because that's one of my favorite tools. Then we go next to the other kind of release style, and it's a spin. So not only barking, not only giving ball or food from the pocket, also the spin as a style of reward can help your healing training a lot. Their little Esko shows example to us. Spin, reward with the food. The dog spins to the left, and after that the helper gives the food to the dog. Very nice. So that's the one way to reward, and why we would use the spin from the healing. Why we wouldn't just reward from the pocket? What's the reason for that? There is a couple of reasons. The one is that in healing, when I go to do seminars, I often see that the people has problems with forging, or the dog is crooked in heeling. Typically the dogs who are active in the heeling, they want to go a little bit front of the handler, or they start to push the handler. Now when we make the dog to go to left before the dog gets a reward, that's an excellent tool to control the position. As we know, the direction for the reward controls a lot the dog's position in the heeling. So that's why we can avoid, for example, with the spin, the fact that the dog start to push on your leg so much, or the dog start to go in front of you in the heeling. So that's the one of the main reasons there why we can use the spin. It doesn't mean that if you have taught the dog the spin in the heeling that you have to use it all the time, but that's just the one tool to maintain your heeling or develop the activity or just maintain the position, depending on the dog, of course. And the spin is something that you need to also teach for the dog outside of the heeling training at first. So the dog learns to do that without the heeling at first, and once it's clear, then you can combine it on your heeling. One thing what I sometimes forget to explain to people enough is the praising. The praising during the heeling is one extra important tool for the handlers to get more activity out of the dogs, keep the connection with the dog. That's something what you start to build for the puppy already when you are teaching your pup in the heeling training, or you are just doing the obedience and doing the engagement training. The praising is very important part of that training, that the dog really learns to show more activity through the praising. And also when the dog shows the right behavior in any part of obedience, the praising is the way to show for the dog that you are going to the right direction. That also makes stronger the connection between the handler and the dog. And not only that the dog is working for the handler in the praising, but also we combine the praising the reward. So the food or the toy comes after the praising. So the dog learns to be more and more active from the praising, as we see in this slow motion video. Now the handler starts to praise. You can see the tail. After the praising, the tail goes faster and faster, and the dog is more and more active. Connection between the dog and the handler. The dog is really working for the handler. The handler is praising, rewarding after the praise. And then combining all of this, of course, in your young dog heeling training, making the training exciting. That the dog shows the barking, comes the praising. The dog shows activity and handler rewards from the heeling.
All right, we are back.
Sorry that there is, we just noticed that there is that 500 people limit on this webinar. So now some people are refreshing their screen and they cannot get back.
Yeah.
And we didn't really know that.
No, so we're dog trainers and we are not techie people. He may be a little more than me, but we didn't know that there was a limit. So serious apologies. You can kind of keep checking back in, but we still can't figure out where it says that we can't have more than 500 people. But at any rate.
And it will be 48 hours after this available for all the registered people anyway. So
you'll get the replay. Yeah. Sorry, everyone.
You can say sorry for those people who doesn't see us.
Okay. So,
all right, I hope you enjoyed the video. And at first, I would like to say there is the Heikki, my friend, is showing the examples in a healing with Inio, and huge thanks to Heikki about his excellent work with Inio on that video.
Yes, and for being the butt of some of your jokes.
Exactly.
Bad.
So the main thing in the healing is that the dog learns to actually enjoy that exercise. So the actual healing itself should be for the dog kind of reward. So that's kind of goal in the training. Like when you are doing the healing, that the dog is enjoying that healing and enjoying the joy of the activity, the healing, and the healing itself would be the release for the dog, and the dog would like to do that for the handler. And that is the one thing, especially in my sport, in a IGP, IPO shouldn't. It's something that carries through the obedience routine when the dog is active and powerful all the time in the healing. So that's one of the main points.
Sorry, I was reading.
Chatting.
So I want to recap a little bit to help people understand. I'm reading some of the messages, and some people are saying, well, how do we get that focus? For sure, it's not something that you get in a matter of seconds, but the main things with that video, the first thing that you went over is really to help proofing. So this is for somebody who already has some healing. Even if it's not total perfect eye contact healing, that right turn, pop, praise, and reward will still help you proof your dog. And then the second thing he went over is the barking, to help build excitement for the healing. And then I just want to point out that there are other ways for you to do that, to get more activity and to teach the dog that the healing is fun, that are non-vocal. So a lot of you, especially in the AKC ring, are a little bit nervous to have your dog barking because barking is points off. But you can do non-vocal rewarding. So you can do, a food chase where you release the dog to chase some food in your hand, or like you saw, the next one we went over was the spin. You can pull a dog out by the harness, somebody helping you from healing to build that drive and build that engagement. So there are other non-vocal ways to do it. And then the last thing we went over, of course, was the praising during the healing. Hugely important, but really only useful if your dog values your praise. So you have to make sure that your dog is excited to hear you praise them, and you're not giving it around the house all the time. And then once you get on the training field, it's not that important. Kind of like food. You can't feed your dog right before you go out and train. So.
Yeah, for sure. And like healing generally is something what needs like lots of repetitions, of course.
Yeah.
Like when we are talking about that eye contact, that how you get that eye contact, everything starts from that when you have a young dog, that you can get the puppy engaged with you. So the puppy is taking the connection to your face, showing the activity towards you, and you keep rewarding that.
Yeah.
That's the one thing, how you basically start your healing training, is that you are creating that connection with the dog already before you start your actual healing trainings. The healing is the technique, but you have to have that engagement with your young dog. And that is something what reflects a lot in your healing later on.
And we have the free video on engagement on the website. So for those of you saying, yeah, but how do we do it? We already have some free content on it. And the engagement video is a perfect way to start it. It does go over eye contact, and it does go over how to get that serious connection and attention with your dog. And it's free.
And there is the Tony Roy from New Brunswick. Hi, Tony.
Donovan Pincher, right?
No.
Sorry.
German Shepherd.
My bad. Oh, that was a big
German Shepherd.
All right.
German Shepherd man. Hi, Tony. Just so I cannot answer to everybody because I'm sometimes I have to talk and like I'm man. So I cannot focus on two things at the same time anyhow. So it's very difficult to me to read and speak at the same time. Maybe I will have to train that more. But
two boobs you can. Sorry.
Yeah.
So we are releasing the healing course. We're going to make this kind of quick. But we did want to show you a little snippet of that. So one more little, this one's a very short video, just to show you kind of what you can expect if you do decide that you would like to sign up for the healing course. And this is a front to back healing course starting from the very beginning. And here. So just to give you a little idea, we have been working on this a very, 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 very long time. Basically, anytime he's not traveling, we're working together on it. And when he's traveling, I'm editing. The cool thing about doing something like this is you can learn kind of at your own pace. You do get access to the course for a year. And especially since there's only one of him, he can't go around all the time. What does it cost to attend one of your seminars, or anybody who's really good? What's the cost on a 3-day seminar?
It depends for sure a lot. It can be like $300-400 dollars,
okay.
Something like that.
Yeah. So it's pricey. The course is it's a lot of content. You can expect to complete it in about 10 to 12 weeks if you're working seriously on it, but it is available if you want to take your time with it. It's available for a year after you purchase it. And, you know, it's if you can't get to a club all the time, or if you can't get to the seminars that you want to go to, this is a really good option. The cool thing is he notices problems with every single handler. So when handlers come out to work, there are consistent problems. And what we've done is put the videos in slow motion, point out things, and put step-by-step instructions on what to do based upon the problems that he sees in his seminars all over the world. And we do hope to get this translated to some other languages at some point. Maybe Finnish, maybe Spanish.
Yeah, Finnish.
Yeah. Okay.
I can do that translation.
Yeah, I know. So the other thing with this course is it's not videoed sessions from somebody else. So it's super, super concentrated. We have it all kind of exactly what you need to see. There's no waiting around. There's no waiting for them to get to the part. It goes from the beginning when the dog's a puppy, or when the dog doesn't know healing or has just started, to the end, to more of a trial picture. So it's a massive, massive, massive course. I'm not going to really sell you guys on it. If you want it, you can buy it, and if not, heal on your own and send us some videos of that. We love healing.
I would like to answer for a few questions what I saw while you were talking.
Okay, go ahead and answer, even though our Q&A is not up yet, but you can start.
Yeah, I can just, they were already earlier, so okay. They were about the video a little bit. So, okay. So there was the question that do we give the signal, the cue for the bark and spin? Yes. So there is a cue for the bark, and like I tried to explain on the video a little bit, so the barking, when you use the barking in the healing, is something what you need to teach for the dog beforehand. Before you use the barking in the healing as a tool, you need to teach for the dog that barking in the other situation at first, and the dog has to understand the word. For example, my word is what. So command what means barking, so the dog has to understand the reaction on that word. So when I give the command what, my dog start to bark. And that then I can use it in the healing. And the same idea in the spin too. You know, now we saw in that video in the spin that the handler is doing the spin from the healing, but that's also something what you can teach for the dog beforehand already. The dog is front of you, you have a food in your hand, and with the cue you teach the dog to spin. Yes. And the dog learns to spin, and then you can combine it in your healing. But before you can combine those in your healing, you actually have to have, the dog has to have the picture of the healing. He has to have like a technical picture about the healing already.
And also the turn and pop, I think they were asking if you give a cue right before you do that. So let's say you're healing along and your dog looks away. Yes, you can say foos and turn and go, or you don't have to. I think honestly, the dog will learn in both ways. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Did you hear what I said?
I hear.
Such a man.
I heard.
Yes.
I heard almost everything. You know, like all the important parts. And I would never say that I don't agree anyhow. So
that's good.
You know.
Yeah. But when do you know what I mean? Right?
Yes.
When you're turning, you can say heel and go, or you can just surprise the dog and go. Personally, I repeat the command every time before I correct, but I have seen dogs learn just fine without that cue.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So
and one thing about the reward, because I said about the spin, and then I said about the barking. So the one thing is also like that you use the two different cues, of course, for the spin and barking, and then like in the healing course, we talk about many different kind of rewarding styles, and little bit depending on the rewarding style, we can also change the cue for the reward. So the dog knows, okay, spin has one kind of cue, and then reward when you have a reward in your pocket, then there is a one kind of cue for that when you reward from the pocket. So in different rewards, you have different cues.
I just have to say that Wayne Singleton is on here, and I really want to invite.
Yeah, we love Wayne's
comedy.
Yes,
comedy show.
And also all the hard work that he does when he's filming the competitions in North America. It's very nice.
Wayne, you're the shit. Oh, I hope there's no children. Sorry, I saw him on there, so I had to say what's up. I wish I could invite him to speak video, but since this is our first time and we're already like a little bit not okay. So I'm just going to put the healing offer on here. It's a coupon. It's good for 48 hours. So the course, I never said how much it was. The course, once it goes on the website, the whole course, and again, this is turns and proofing and luring and shaping and all that. It goes over everything. The whole course is $529 once it goes on the website. So once it's up there in 48 hours, I guess it's up there already, but it'll be $529 once everything is said and done. However, with this coupon for the next 48 hours, you can get it for $299. So share with your friends. You can get it for, did I just say that? That's a bad idea. You can get it for $299. And then the first 10 people who purchase do get a free video. They get this guy on video to critique them. So it's a video lesson that comes with that. So maybe once you've had a few lessons within the course, you sign up for his video chat, and you can send him video and he'll review it. And then when you guys talk, he'll have it. So I'm just going to post the that little offer up here. And there it is, hopefully. And it ends in about 48 hours. So if you know someone who wants to do this, make sure they do it within the next 40. I think I actually have it public on there. So even if they just go onto the website within the next 2 days, it'll be on there. Okay, so Q&A. Back to chat. Oh no, we have to do the number one problem you see in healing.
Number one problem in the healing. Ooh, we should have a little music here in these kind of situations. Anyhow, the number one problem, for sure, there is many problem. I'm facing problems in the healing all the time, of course, as well. So the dog training is not easy. The thing is that when you are facing the problem, that you have actually the ideas how you can start to fix those issues or those problems what you see in the healing. So it's not something like that, okay, we can make a video, this is the progress and everything looks good, but the actual thing in the healing training is always that there will be problems on the way. There will be something what will be difficult. It will be a technical problem, or maybe it will be the emotional problem, but always you are facing some kind of issue. So this is pretty typical. When we are talking about like a puppy training, the very common issue what I see with the puppies when people are training healing is that when they are doing the luring with the dog, so the dog is pushing the nose on the hand when the handler is walking forward. The handlers often keep their hand too close to the body. And now when you keep the hand too close to the body, the dog learns to touch on your leg. So when you walk forward, the dog is touching on your leg. Maybe when you have the small puppy, it doesn't feel so bad. But when you have the adult dog, heavy dog, active dog, okay, then the dog start to push more and more, especially when you take your hand away from the nose, then the dog has learned already that the fixed point is kind of like, okay, I'm pushing on your leg, that's the position. So be really careful when you are training your puppies, your young dogs, that you keep the little space between your leg and the dog's body.
Yeah.
That's a one kind of, as a technical issue, one big, in my opinion, in healing training. The other thing, especially again, when I talk about the young dogs, the other big problem is the engagement. Mm-hmm. So when the handler walks to the field, the dog is not with the handler. This depends on the dog. Sometimes we have a dog who has very high food drive. Then it's easier to have engagement because the dog is kind of hungry and wants that food from you. But always prepare your dog already at home a little bit. Do the engagement trainings. Like Sarah said, we have that free video on our website. So the dog learns to be engaged with the handler, and you reward from there. And then when you go to the field and to the new place, make the first trainings easier. So the dog is easy to engage with you.
Yeah.
And then from there you go. Before you can actually do the healing training, you have to have this connection. There has to be the dog has to engage with the handler.
Yes, super important. And we do go over that in the engagement video. And then, and even in the luring stages, I know we're talking about one big mistake, and his answer to me when I asked him that was the technical part of it. So the touching is the most common, but another really common one is the hopping. Stop reading questions.
Hopping, yes, that's true. Hopping, it's very nice looking sometimes when the dog is hopping a lot. I would agree with that. But in healing, it's a technical mistake. So especially when you do your first trainings in the healing, you have to look the dog's movement beside you. So when the dog is moving, for example, the luring phase, that you reward the behavior when the dog is walking, maybe animated and active. Mm-hmm. You reward that behavior, and be careful that you don't reward the hopping. Some dogs very naturally hops in every situation, a little bit with the front legs. So your timing has to be right there too. Yeah,
finding that rhythm is really, really important if you want a dog that walks and doesn't do this. I see that a lot on Instagram, all you posting puppy videos. Make sure you're getting actual movement that's not going to be pointed, because it's so easy at this stage. Like, it's really easy at this stage to do it, but once they get into that habit of doing it, it's pretty tough, as some of you know.
Yes.
So the Q&A, all of your questions, just send them to us right now, because this is the time to do it. I'm going to be on here, and then I will give him the questions. Actually, I know you're just going to read it anyway, so you might as well just read it. Chatty, Brian Curry, hello, mister. So glad the replay is available. PJ, okay, let's see here. So PJ thinks that you have to, because you have to be quiet when you get into the test, that giving praise, the dog might think he's bad when it goes silent. And just as, I'll let you answer that. Did you read it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So at first, when you are using your praising in the training, it's something that the dog learns the meaning for it. For example, when you have a young dog and you don't have a clear relationship, strong relationship with your young dog yet, you praise and then you reward afterwards. So your dog learns that the praising leads to the reward. And of course, over the time when you have a relationship, that praising actually comes very important. It's a connection between you and the dog learns to show activity from that praising. Now, the important thing is there, like when you later praise your dog, you have to also read your dog's behavior and emotion. So if you always praise the dog when the dog is, for example, going a little bit passive or distracted, maybe the dog learns to be reactive. Okay, I look away or I am a little passive here, then my handlers praise and the handler is active. Then the dog learns that, okay, my handler start to be funny and active always when I'm a little passive and I'm distracted. So it's important that you actually praise the dog when the dog is doing something right and trying, and that's the moment. And you actually reward your dog later on in your healing when the dog is trying the best, when the dog shows the most activity, the best emotion. That's the moment when you reward. And it doesn't mean that you have to praise all the time. Of course, when you have a young dog, you are praising more, your healings are short.
Just like you're rewarding with food and a ball more. You don't have those in the trial either. The dog has to learn longevity between rewards.
So the young dog, you are praising a little more, teaching the meaning of the praising. Once the dog start to show the same activity all the time in your trainings, then you don't praise so much anymore. Then you let the dog to be active when you are passive, and then you reward that. So the dog learns. So it's a process, So you have to see that as a process.
Yes. So somebody asked where the website is. It should be on the offers. It's canamodog.com, but it should be on the offers. That'll give you a direct link from it. Vocal. What about a dog that is too willing to heel and is vocal? Oh, homie, that sucks. That's a toughie.
Yeah, it's a difficult question in the training, and I know that many people who has very active dogs, they have a problems with the vocalization in the healing. And now at first you have to think that is the behavior what you reward, is it clear for the dog? Does the dog know what you want? So the one simple way to look, for example, that the dog is vocal. If your dog is vocal in the healing, what if you show the reward for the dog? If you have a visible reward, is your dog quiet and looks at the reward? Can you reward that way the right behavior? Maybe there is a little conflict between you and the dog, and that's why the dog is vocal. So you can try at first, for example, to have a very visible reward, have a clear target for the dog. For example, in the armpit, when the dog is quiet, reward that behavior, and then go from there. Then start to move the target away slowly. So often it's like that the dog is not really clear what behavior the handler really wants from the dog. So the dog kind of gets frustrated, and that's why the dog is vocal. That's only the one reason. And that's just one solution what you can think about in that situation.
Okay, Kat wants to know if we'll be covering motion exercises in the healing course. No, that will be a whole nother course. That's a big project. We can't put all of that in the healing as well. That'll be another course, probably in a few months.
Yeah, the motion exercises, they are big. They need a lot of lots of work. Sit down, stand. Each one is totally different project to build to the good level from the healing.
Oh, sure. Take this. Maria Tukova has a problem with pushing. And we talked about the reward styles.
Yeah, the pushing in the healing. So, of course, it depends a little bit what phase you are in the healing. There is the one way the one important thing when you think your technical problems in healing is the direction of the reward. Mm-hmm. So what's the direction of the reward? Is the direction of the reward to the way, or for example, if your dog is pushing, maybe if you reward all the time to the front, so now maybe the dog is pushing more and more all the time.
She says she uses spins, but if you're rewarding the dog when he comes back around and gets in position, you may want to have him spin and then reward to the outside. And on top of that, a bonus would be pairing the spin command with a little pop. So you can almost make it a little correction. So when he touches you, you can give him the cue spin with a pop to the outside and make him spin, and then make sure your reward goes away from you, not back, pushing on your leg. That's one way.
That's a one way to do it. And like if the dog has learned the pushing already, it might be that the spin itself doesn't help it. So then you have to maybe use the leash in that situation. For example, pulling a little bit from the leash crosser for your body and then make the dog spin, or using the pop like Sarah said. There is a different ways to fix that. fix that situation. But the spin itself as the only tool maybe doesn't work if the dog has learned the wrong behavior already. But it helps in that situation when you start to fix it.
Alexandra, how do you manage a dog with high arousal to calm them down and cap the drive?
Arousal, English is my second language still.
So most likely they have a problem with vocalizing.
Vocalizing, I had a little chat about the vocalizing already earlier.
Do you agree? I've had some friends, Paula, Oscar, and Rochelle, that have had luck with letting the dog bark it out before they go onto the field. For a dog who just has so much in them, taking them off to the side, healing for 5 minutes, or releasing them to just bark and play tug a little bit beforehand.
Maybe that's the solution if you don't find any other methods to fix it. Yes, it might be, but always if there is a chance to find the other method that the dog is still in the highest drive, in the highest intensity in the healing and can be quiet, that's always the preferable situation. Like we want that the dog puts that behavior in the right, the activity to the right behavior instead of letting it out with the noise.
Okay, Linda asks, when do you add the healing stick? We don't use a healing stick in our training program. That doesn't mean that you can't. But if somebody was to use healing stick, when would you add that in?
I haven't taught the healing stick as a stick like in the foundation ever, but I normally have used it more like if somebody has a problem to teach for the dog how to react on the stick and reward from that. So it has been more like for problems. Yeah. So we don't use that in our foundation.
Okay. Andrew missed the biggest mistake. I'll recap for you. The technical stuff, like the dog pushing on the side of you during the luring phases or hopping during the luring phases. So luring in a way that you don't actually want. Juan Carlos, ball, tug, or food, what is better for you?
Yeah, that's a good question, Juan Carlos. So there is typically when we are training the dogs, and if you have dogs who has very high toy drive, we start with the food because then we can keep the dog a little bit calmer with the food. Typically, depending on the dog, everything depends on the dog. Remember, so I don't try to give an answer what works for every dog. I'm just generalizing a little bit. So because the dog can be a little more calmer and a little lower drive in the food, the dog can learn. Much more easily. So the learning process is easier with the food. It's also easier for the handler to use. Then with the tug or ball, you have to go at first through the toy rules. So the dog learns to out, bring the tug back and all the other things, but the toy rules later on the videos for sure as well. So that that you can actually use the ball in the training. If you keep the ball for the dog and the dog runs away with the ball, it's slightly short sessions. So that's why it's important to go some playing with the dog through at first. And many dogs, they can go very active with the toy, especially the dogs what we are dealing with a lot. They can be very, very super active. So the technical learning is a little bit more difficult. But for sure, if you have a dog who is very active for the food and is more active for the food than for the toys, then it's not wrong at all to use the food instead of the toy in every situations in your healing process. So you can use the food as a reward from the beginning to the end.
Yeah. So my dog's a good example of that, especially if you have problems with vocalizing. Sometimes food can be a better option for you. That way they learn in the healing. They're not getting the ball ever. It's just praise and maybe a treat here and there. If you do have problems with too much drive, like some of you lucky bastards. Elena says she can help you with your Russian translation of videos. I don't know. That's not Swedish, Elena, is it? It must be Russian, Elena. How do you avoid... Oh, somebody else asked a good question, which is how do you start your training? So when you bring the dog onto the field, what's the first thing that you do with them?
How I start my training session. So the training session, when I start with the young dog, I expect from the young dog that the dog is active towards me. And when the dog shows towards me eye contact, maybe even barks at me a little bit, shows some kind of activity, that's how I start my training sessions. And once I see that the dog start to be active all the time when I come to the field, then I start to do more like I would do in the trial kind of, I make my dog wait a little bit before I go to the field, and I do kind of the similar routine there every time when I walk to my obedience routine. Also in the trainings, and I follow a little bit that same routine when I go to the trial as well.
Oh, Daniel has a good question, a super common one. How do you avoid jumping and forging right at the beginning? We just worked with Alexei. At the beginning of healing, the dog jumps out, forges.
Yeah. When you do the first step.
You're gonna get another freebie? We're giving you guys too much free stuff. All right,
no,
explain.
It's good.
It's very effective.
It's very important that the training level goes all the time higher.
Yes.
So that's a good question. The one thing what I do there often is that I look that my dog doesn't have a reaction on my leg movement.
Maybe I should demonstrate.
Yes, I want that my dog follows my body,
not the leg.
Yeah. So now when you give command force, and if you lift your leg, your dog should keep the position.
Yes.
And when you lift your leg, you move your leg, the dog keeps the position. Reward. So look, first thing, when you say command force, that your dog doesn't move right away in front of you. That's the first thing. The second thing is that when you say force and you move your leg, or command heel, you move your leg, that the dog doesn't jump in front of you. So start with that basic position training at first, so that the dog learns to keep the basic position and doesn't go ahead of you.
And then after that, the other thing that you can do right after the first or second step you take is...
After that, I should not answer for that too. Oh, fuck.
Left turn. We just did this yesterday.
Yes. I'm just joking.
Okay.
So left turn, it can be one. But of course, now this, when you start to move forward, so now the answer is not so simple anymore.
No.
Because then there is many other effects. But the question was what you do that when the dogs move forward in the first step, and that's the basic position training is the answer for that. Then when you start to look forward, then it can be slightly more complicated answer, depending a little bit on the dog's drive and what is the head position and all that stuff.
Yes. One person was asking what to do with the head position. They want it more up, and it's across the body. These are the technical problems that people have.
Yeah, the good like the way typically to see the solution when you think the solution for the head position is to start at first in a basic position to fix those problems in stationary. So do at first stationary and look stationary how you can affect on the head position, that the dog doesn't drop the head front of you. And once you find the tools in your basic position for that issue, then you have something to use in the movement.
Oh, okay. So a lot of problems start from basic position.
Technical problems in healing. So we can talk two different kind of problems in healing, but can be also connected to each other. Is the technical issues in the healing, and then the emotional issues. Mm-hmm. So the activity issues and so on.
Val's on here, the kite surfing. Is that what you do, Val, on Instagram? Okay. What type of reward do you use for secondary? First of all, I would clarify that. Are you talking about with a helper around, or are you talking about without a helper? I think what he's saying is, what do you use to reward the dog when the helper is present? We don't really do that a whole lot. We don't really keep a toy on us a whole lot. A lot of people do. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah,
when you do the secondary obedience, typically we use the reward, what is on the floor somewhere. But that's totally other subject already.
Yes.
Like all the healing has to be ready when you do secondary obedience. The secondary obedience as a calibration is the obedience what we used in the protection routine.
Right. I think he was meaning like when the helper's on the field, and we use the helper as a reward.
Exactly. The helper is the reward.
Not a toy with us. We use the helper as a reward.
Normally not.
Yeah.
There is some cases where we can use a toy too.
But the dog has already had a lot of training on it, so it's not like we're trying to teach them during the helper phase. It's done with a toy for sure, but not with the helper on the field. And then once it transfers.
Exactly. All the technical things are done without the helper.
Yeah. How do you train sharp turns? Do you use a flex pole? No, we don't use a flex pole. Not to say that it's bad. It's just
I have used the flex pole in the past in the trainings quite a few times. And especially for the dogs, that if sometimes the handler has a little bit issues to create the activity, In the obedience, the flex pole is the one good tool to make that. So then you don't have to rely on somebody holds from the leash. You can you can have the dog on the pole.
Right, but you don't use it in your training.
Not typically, no.
Right. Lack of engagement is this guy. He's always asking questions. I love it. Is a lack of engagement the major reason for not using the ball under the armpit method? That's one. Is it possible to start with the ball under the armpit, then cross over to eye contact, or somehow combine both? That's actually a cool question.
Yeah, you speak so fast English that I didn't understand. Is it possible to start the ball on the armpits, then cross over to eye contact? Yes, it's possible. Sometimes that's what we do. So sometimes when there is a technical issue or the healing already, like that the dog has done the wrong technical lot. So with the toy, often it's easiest to change the healing position. So when we have a clear target on the toy, we can use the toy on the armpit, we can use it behind the back or whatever is the problem. So we can use the toy in the spot what helps the dog to be in the right position. And then eventually from there, when the dog has learned to be in the right position, then we go into the situation that we start to make the eye contact to the handler and still keep the same technique.
And Charity is asking, good to be using food in the handler's mouth to get face eye contact?
Yes, for sure. Although when you do, if you do that in the healing, you have to be careful with that. That cannot be the only way to reward.
It's better in basic.
Yeah, it's better in the basic position, and maybe you have to bring your face to the dog and reward from there. So if you spit it just front of you when you do the healing, it might be that the dog start to anticipate and run front of you to get the
But it is it's a good way to do it, to teach initially when you're not moving where to look and to solidify that focal point.
Exactly, and the engagement, especially it's a one way to do the engagement in the first trainings.
Right. How long does it take for a dog to be physically prepared to comply with IGP routine in this type of healing? Depends on the dog.
It depends, of course. So every dog develops a little different way. So you cannot really say that, okay, some dogs, you can train a little quicker, kind of. They are more develop more, they don't react environment so easily. Like now our puppy Esco doesn't react so much to environments and is pretty active for the food. So it's easy to bring that dog, not easy, but I'm just saying it's easier to bring that dog quickly forward in the trainings. Except the dog who is distracted, for example, then you have to take a little bit time, because as we know, when the dog is young, they get more easily distracted, and then later on when they get older, they get more confident and they don't react so much anymore. The physical part, I haven't been actually thinking that so much. The physical part, really, the healing doesn't, the short healing periods you can do for every kind of puppy, I believe so. Yeah. And
they were saying the whole routine though. So for the whole routine, it depends on physically what your dog is. If your dog's a heavier breed, or, I'm not going to try to get the same type of healing from a German Shepherd that I would maybe ask for from a Malinois. Every breed, every dog's different physically. So you have to kind of see what your dog moves comfortably at. Your dog should be comfortable in the heel. This is not, if you see a dog with the head up, it doesn't mean that they're uncomfortable. It might mean that they're a gymnast and they're just fine doing it. And if you see a dog with the head down a little more, it may not mean that the handler didn't do a good job. It may mean that they saw that dog moved the best in that form. So you have to know your dog.
Cool. That was very good. Lots of questions. We cannot answer to everything, of course. But nice to see. Nice to see. And now there was the problem with 500 people. Now, because of our boring explanation, we are already in 392. So we are losing people very fast.
We're about, do you start the puppies on a touchpad for positioning?
I never have done that for positions on the touchpad. Of course, I have seen that many times, but I never done myself.
Any more questions? We've answered the dog jumping and healing already. You'll have to go to the replay for that. turn in front or back and healing to Fuß. Juan, I'm not sure what that means.
It means the finish. Yeah, I can just give a couple of while you are maybe choosing the last question for
couple
today.
Questions, people, get them in.
And then I'm answering to this finish. So there is just a couple of main things. If you want that the dog, if I understood right that question, it means that the dog is kind of flipping into the finish position. Before you start to do that flip, it's important that the dog learns to turn with you in the left turns at first and move the back part of the body properly. And once the dog has learned that, then you can start to do that from sit to sit. If you start right away from sit to sit, the dog maybe doesn't lift the bum, the ass up, and that's why it's very difficult for the dog to move properly. So my main answer for that question is teach the dog at first to move properly in the left turns before you start to think the finish too much.
Okay. To work on your left turns first.
Exactly.
And it all involves the butt moving.
Exactly.
The rear end. Don't do it in a sit, people.
That's what I just said.
You did it. I was reading questions. I'm sorry. So Mel, you're asking, what do you think of a dog that loses focus in a ring? Should you return to basic heel work? It sounds like a drive problem. It
sounds an emotional problem when the dog loses the focus. First, you have to always think why that's happening. Is that happening because your reward is not exciting enough? Or is it happening in the basic position already? So focus in your training, especially on the basic position, that the dog learns in the basic position to be active. Mm-hmm. Because now in the basic position, stationary, when you are waiting, you're healing. And if the dog is there already really distracted, looking around, it can affect a lot on your healing. So the basic position, where you start your healing, is very important moment. And that's typically what I see. The dog looks around a lot, paying attention, everything was happening around. So, and now when you start from that emotion, the healing, for many dogs, it can be difficult to build up.
And the other thing I want to say is that when you're in training, if your dog is, medium drive, when you go to competition, you're going to see a drop in that drive. So sometimes for some dogs, especially if you're working with a dog that's more of a low to medium drive dog, you kind of have to work on cranking that drive up, maybe to the point where it looks a little out of control in training, but you have more gas in the tank for the competition. And the video, you can watch it on a replay, Mel, if you missed it, but it goes over breaking that healing up, not long routine. How many clubs do we go into where everybody does this long routine, whether it's AKC or IPO? Right? Teach your dog in training that healing is an exciting thing that can change at any moment. And that helps your engagement.
Cool.
All right. Guys, I think we are going to wrap this up. Why don't you do your thumbs up?
People say that I cannot do it because they get scared when I do my thumb up.
Oh, your thumb is a little deformed.
Yes.
That's true. Well, thank you for joining us. Any words besides your screwed up thumb you would like to say?
No, this was the first experience for us, the webinar, and we are still apologizing. We are sorry. So that's an easier word in English.
I like the way you said apologizing. It was cute.
So we are still sorry about that we had little bit limitations at first, that we couldn't get all the 500 people, but all the people who has registered, you can tell your friends who are angry at home right now that they can still watch this webinar afterwards. I know that it's not the same because you're going to put questions there and stuff like that, but sorry about that. And we try to get better with this thing.
Yes. Sorry, guys.
We're going to have webinars in the future too.
We will.
And most likely there is not so many people anymore, so it's easier that way too.
Yeah, exactly. All right, guys. Have a good day.